The moment you explain yourself to someone who never respected you, you hand them a weapon they will use against you for years. Here are the 7 things a disciplined man never explains, and the 7th one is the one quietly destroying most men right now. There is a moment in every man's life when he realizes that explaining himself has cost him more than staying silent ever could. You have felt it, that moment when you tried to justify a decision to someone who had already made up their mind about you, and no matter how clear your words were, how logical your reasoning, how honest your intentions, it changed nothing. The ancient Stoics understood something that modern society has forgotten in its obsession with transparency and oversharing. They understood that silence is not weakness. Silence is a weapon. An explanation, when given to the wrong person at the wrong time, is a form of self-destruction. Marcus Aurelius sat on the throne of the most powerful empire on earth, and yet he wrote in his private journal, not for an audience, not for approval, that a man who needs the applause of others to feel at peace has already lost his peace. He did not run a press conference every time someone in Rome misunderstood his motives. He governed, he acted, he let the results speak. Epictetus, born a slave, chained and beaten, learned before any of us that some things are within your control and some things are not, and the opinion of others sits firmly in the category you cannot control, no matter how badly you want to control it.
So today, we are going to walk through 7 things a disciplined man never explains. Not because he is arrogant, not because he does not care, but because he understands that every explanation he throws into the wind is a piece of his own power, given away for free to people who were never going to use it responsibly in the first place. If you have ever stayed up at night rehearsing what you should have said to defend yourself, if you have ever felt the exhausting itch to make someone understand you, this video is going to change the way you carry yourself for the rest of your life. Stay until the end, because the 7th one is the one that quietly destroys more men than any of the others combined. The first thing a Stoic man never explains is his silence. When you go quiet, people panic. They ask what is wrong. They demand to know why you have pulled back. They interpret your silence as anger, as coldness, as an insult directed at them personally. But your silence is not always about them. Sometimes silence is where you process. Sometimes it is where you protect your own mind from saying something you will regret. Seneca wrote to Lucilius that nothing is more honorable than a man who knows how to be silent even when he has every right to speak. The untrained mind believes that every silence must be filled, every gap must be explained, every pause must be accounted for, because we live in a culture terrified of the quiet. But a man who explains his silence destroys the very thing that made it powerful.
The moment you say, "I was just tired," or "I didn't mean anything by it," you hand over the meaning of your own behavior to someone else's interpretation. And now you're managing their emotions instead of tending to your own mind. The Stoic does not owe anyone a narration of his inner world. He lets the silence stand exactly as it is, unexplained, because explained silence is no longer silence. It is a performance. The second thing he never explains is his ambition. There will always be people around you who cannot understand why you want more, why you're not satisfied with what everyone else has settled for, why you wake up at 5 in the morning while they sleep until noon. These people will ask you, sometimes with genuine curiosity, sometimes with thinly veiled resentment, what exactly you're trying to prove. The moment you start explaining your ambition, defending your goals, justifying your hunger, you begin to shrink it down to a size that makes other people comfortable. Cato the Younger did not explain to the Roman Senate why he refused to compromise his principles for convenience. He simply lived by them day after day until his consistency became its own argument.
Your ambition does not need a courtroom defense. It needs execution. Every hour you spend explaining why you want to build something, why you train before sunrise, why you say no to the 5th invitation this month, is an hour stolen from the actual building. The people who matter will see the results eventually. The people who do not matter were never going to be convinced anyway, no matter how eloquent your explanation.
The third thing a disciplined man never explains is his boundaries. This is where most people bleed out their energy without even realizing it. You say no to a request, and immediately you feel obligated to provide 3 reasons why, softened with apologies, wrapped in guilt, as if the simple word no was somehow an act of aggression that requires damage control. But a boundary that comes with a lengthy justification is not really a boundary. It is an invitation for negotiation. The moment you explain why you will not lend the money, why you will not attend the gathering, why you will not tolerate being spoken to a certain way, you open the door for someone to argue with your reasoning, to poke holes in your logic, to wear you down until the boundary collapses. Epictetus taught that some things belong to us and some things do not, and how a boundary is received by another person belongs entirely to them, not to you. Your responsibility ends at stating it clearly. A calm, unexplained no carries more authority than a paragraph of justification ever will, because desperation to be understood is the first crack in any wall you are trying to build around your peace. The fourth thing he never explains is his past. Everyone has scars. Everyone has a version of themselves from 5, 10, 15 years ago that they are no longer proud of. And there is always someone in your life who wants the full story, who wants to know exactly what happened, who wants details they can quietly judge you for, or worse, use against you later disguised as concern.
Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily that the best revenge is to not become like the people who wronged you, and part of that discipline is refusing to keep reliving your wounds out loud for an audience that has not earned the right to hear them. Your past shaped you. It does not need to be handed over as evidence to people who are simply curious, or worse, hunting for ammunition. A man secure in who he has become does not need to narrate the road that got him there. He simply stands as proof of it. When you explain your past to everyone who asks, you keep reopening a wound that healed a long time ago, and you give strangers the power to reinterpret your story in ways that were never true to begin with. The fifth thing a Stoic never explains is his pace. In a world addicted to speed, to overnight success stories, to comparison at every scroll of the thumb, moving at your own pace looks suspicious to people who have never built anything of value themselves. They will ask why you are still single at your age, why you have not bought a house yet, why your business has not scaled the way theirs did, why you are still learning a skill others mastered years ago. Seneca understood that life is not short, we simply waste most of it, and a man who has reclaimed his time answers to no calendar but his own. Explaining your timeline to people who did not build it, who do not understand the obstacles behind it, who cannot see the discipline required to sustain it, only invites them to compress you into their own limited understanding of what progress should look like.
Your pace is yours. It was earned through your specific struggles, your specific responsibilities, your specific circumstances, and no explanation will ever fully translate that to someone standing outside of your life, looking in with a stopwatch. The sixth thing he never explains is his generosity, or the lack of it in a particular moment. There will be times you help someone quietly, without posting about it, without needing acknowledgement, and there will be times you choose not to help, and both decisions will be questioned by people who believe your resources exist for their convenience. When you give without explanation, people cannot manipulate the terms of that gift. When you decline without explanation, people cannot argue into a corner.
Marcus Aurelius wrote that when you have done a good deed and another has received it, why do you still look for a third thing beyond these, like credit for the deed or a return for it, as fools do? Real generosity does not need a spreadsheet of justification attached to it, and real restraint does not need an apology tour explaining why this time was different. The moment you start narrating your generosity, it stops being virtue and starts being a transaction, one where you are quietly expecting something back, even if that something is just approval. The seventh thing, and the one that costs men the most, is he never explains his transformation.
This is the one almost nobody talks about, and it is the one that will end this video, because it is the quiet killer hiding underneath everything we have already discussed. When you start changing, genuinely changing, cutting off old habits, old friendships that no longer serve who you are becoming, old versions of yourself that used to seek validation everywhere, the people who knew the old you will demand an explanation. They will say you have changed, and they will say it like an accusation, not an observation. They want the old version back because the old version was predictable, controllable, easy to place in a familiar box. And the exhausting trap so many men fall into is trying to explain the transformation, trying to make people understand the internal work, the reading, the discipline, the early mornings, the silence, the boundaries, the version of themselves they killed off on purpose to become someone stronger. But transformation explained to people who have not walked your road sounds like arrogance to them, or delusion, or a phase they expect will pass. Zeno of Citium lost everything in a shipwreck, and instead of explaining his misfortune to anyone who would listen, he walked into a bookstore, discovered philosophy, and built an entire school of thought from the wreckage of his old life. He did not need Athens to understand his transformation. He simply became the proof of it. Your transformation is not a debate. It is not a proposal waiting for approval from a committee of people who liked you better when you were smaller. The moment you stop trying to explain who you are becoming and simply become it consistently, quietly, without apology, is the moment that transformation actually becomes permanent, because it no longer depends on anyone else's belief in it.
Now, here is what ties all 7 of these together, and it is the part most people miss when they consume content like this and then go right back to their old habits by tomorrow morning. Every single one of these 7 things, your silence, your ambition, your boundaries, your past, your pace, your generosity, and your transformation, they all belong to what the Stoics called your inner citadel. This is the part of you that no external force can touch unless you hand them the keys yourself. Epictetus said that no man is free who is not master of himself. And mastery does not mean controlling other people's opinions of you. It means no longer needing to. Every time you catch yourself rehearsing a justification in the shower, drafting a defensive text message, replaying an argument in your head where you finally say the perfect thing that makes them understand, you are handing the keys to your own citadel over to someone standing outside the walls. And here is the uncomfortable truth nobody wants to hear in a culture built entirely around being seen, being validated, being understood. Most people asking you to explain yourself were never actually looking for clarity. They were looking for control. They wanted a way back into a decision you already made, a way to soften a boundary you already set, a way to drag you back into a version of yourself that was easier for them to manage. The moment you understand this, you stop experiencing the request for an explanation as a fair question and start recognizing it for what it actually is far more often than not, which is an attempt to renegotiate power that you have already claimed.
This does not mean you become cold or arrogant or dismissive of the people who genuinely deserve honesty in your life. Because Stoicism was never about becoming a stone. Marcus Aurelius loved his family. Seneca wrote letters full of warmth to his closest friend. Even Cato, famously unbending, was devoted to the people who had earned his loyalty through years of proven character. The difference is this: explanation given freely out of love to someone who has earned your trust is a gift. Explanation extracted from you through guilt, pressure, or the fear of being misunderstood by someone who does not even respect you is a theft, and you are the one being robbed every single time. So the discipline here is not silence for the sake of silence, it is discernment. It is asking yourself before you open your mouth to defend a decision, does this person deserve this explanation because they have earned my trust? Or am I about to hand over my peace because I am uncomfortable with their disapproval? That single pause, that single question will save you more energy over the course of your life than almost any other habit you could build. Think about how much of your life so far has been spent managing the opinions of people who would not remember your name in 5 years if you disappeared tomorrow. Think about the arguments you replayed at 2 in the morning, defending a version of yourself to someone who was never going to change their mind regardless of what you said.
That energy, all of it, could have gone into your training, your work, your family, your actual life, instead of a performance staged entirely for an audience that was never paying real attention in the first place. The Stoics were not emotionless men standing on marble columns detached from the world. They were men who buried children, lost fortunes, faced exile, and stood before emperors who could end their lives with a single word, and still they wrote, calmly, about the discipline of the inner mind, because they had learned through unbearable loss that the only thing truly theirs was how they chose to respond. You do not need Rome. You do not need a shipwreck. You need the decision, made today, right now, while you are watching this, to stop auditioning for the approval of people who have not earned a seat in the courtroom of your life. Silence your silence. Protect your ambition. Hold your boundaries. Release your past. Walk your pace. Give your generosity freely or not at all. And let your transformation speak entirely through your actions, because a man who has to convince the room he has changed has usually not changed enough yet to stop needing the room's permission.
If this video gave you even one moment of clarity today, one sentence you are going to carry with you the next time someone demands an explanation you do not owe them, then do 3 things for me right now before you leave. Hit that subscribe button, because this channel is building a library of Stoic discipline designed specifically to help men like you reclaim the parts of their life they have been giving away without even noticing. Drop a comment below and tell me which of these 7 hit you the hardest today, because I read every single one, and the men in this comment section are becoming one of the most disciplined communities on this platform. And if you know someone, a brother, a friend, a son, who has been exhausting himself trying to make everyone understand him, send this video to him right now, because sometimes the most respectful thing you can do for another man is hand him the permission to stop explaining and start becoming. Thank you for spending these 20 minutes building your mind instead of scrolling it away. I will see you in the next one.